mean, sex really is binary. There's no question about it. You're either male or female, and it's absolutely clear. You can do it on gamete size. You can.
Okay. I mean, right off the bat here, Richard is wrong. Yeah, sex typically fits into two categories, but there are many atypical situations of chromosomal arrangements that exist. So if he was trying to be clear here, he would reference those different gene expression patterns. So I wanted to make a video on this because I think there is a lot of misinformation going around, and people really tend to strawman the position of contemporary science and where we're at with the difference between sex and gender. Now, right off the bat, there are two common usages for gender, right, in language. The first common usage would be the ones that a lot of people, when they're speaking colloquially about gender, they'll be like, oh, check out that dude, check out that chick, check out that guy, check out that girl. And what they're meaning by that is, check out that male, check out that female. So sex would be used synonymously with gender. Now that's kind of like the contemporary colloquial usage, but there's another common usage that has come into the fold since we've started observing and categorizing and modeling the phenomena of a difference we've noticed between what someone feels to identify as and whether that is consistent with what their sex is, their biological sex is, like male, female, intersex, and like I said, there are variations genealogically in sex. And my idea of scientific modeling is that we should be erring on the side of wanting to create more detailed models that describe phenomena in more detail than try to fall back on traditional models that provide less detail. And that doesn't mean that we necessarily need to change our colloquial usage of language for that reason. But what may happen is that society decides through social movements and different things that the usage of marriage should also apply to two males getting married or two females getting married to each other. Because, we even still have people who hold to the traditional usage of marriage where it would only be applied to a marriage between, or a union between a male and female. But of course, the language and how we use it, in the here and now, in the contemporary, is essentially a legal union between two consenting adults. But Richard, for some reason, is getting very religious with this idea that, gender and sex must mean the same thing, and also that sex is binary. I wanted to take a moment to read this, and I really want to hear your guys' take in the comment section. Let's get a discussion going. And for all of you that know me, understand that I'm a fallibilist, that I'm willing to change my mind on anything. Those of you who might want to call me, a leftist, probably haven't looked at my stuff closely enough. I level critiques all across the political spectrum. For example, I have been and still am quite highly critical of Black Lives Matter, for example, and any violence relating to that movement and that culture. Just as an example. So my ultimate goal is to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. So in doing videos, in creating content at Pangburn, that's my ultimate quest underneath all of this. That's my ultimate personal quest. Now, and the quest of the brand itself is to foster environments of helpful, good faith discourse. So good faith meaning a genuine attempt at a good conversation based on competing definitions of the good, of course, which are always open for discussion. And then helpfulness. And hopefully we all have a good sense of what helpfulness is and what that looks like. Helpfulness tends to unite us all, I think. And it's why it's at the foundation of a lot of our... of what we learn in our childhoods and in grade school. We learn to try to be helpful to one another. So that's what Pangburn's all about. So that's my goal here. I'm not trying to promote a specific ideology. I'm not trying to promote a specific idea. I just want us to speak about things and to go about our purposes in a way that corresponds with reality. My criteria of truth is grounded in correspondence criteria. I would also like you guys to do a little bit of research to figure out what kind of criteria of truth you're typically operating under. A lot of us will have a custom criteria of truth where for some issues, they just won't make sense coherently, and that will be enough for us to deny what we've corresponded thus far, let's say with scientific modeling. But take a look at criteria of truth and see where you land. But for today, I wanted to take some time to read through this Scientific American article. And this is by Agustin Fuentes. This came out May 1st, 2023. The title of this article is, "Here's Why Human Sex is Not Binary. Ova Don't Make a Woman, and Sperm Don't Make a Man." It's funny that it was worded that way, but we'll see. "There are those politicians, pundits, and even a few scientists who maintain that whether our bodies make ova or sperm are all we need to know about sex. They assert that men and women are defined by their production of these gamete cells, making them a distinct biological binary pair, and that our legal rights and social possibilities should flow from this divide. Men are men, women are women, simple." And to take a quick break here, I think that's kind of the Dawkins perspective here. I think this is pretty cut and dry in his mind at the moment. Last year's Supreme Court confirmation hearings played host to the contention when Republican congressional representatives, upset at the nominee's refusal to define woman, took it on themselves to define the term they came up with, quote, "the weaker sex, a mother, and no tallywhacker." Tallywhacker. That human sex rests on a biological binary of making either sperm or ova underlies all these claims. This is bad science. The production of gametes does not sufficiently describe sex biology in animals, nor is it the definition of a woman or a man. Some people also, just as an aside, some people also don't want to accept that we are animals. We're not fungi. We're not bacteria. We're animals, folks. If you don't think you're an animal, let me know why in the comment section below. The animal kingdom does not limit itself to only one biological binary regarding how a species makes gametes. Scientifically speaking, animals with the capacity to produce ova are generally called female and sperm producers male. While most animal species fall into the two types of gametes produced by two versions of the reproductive tract model, the reproductive tract model, many don't. Some worms produce both, some fish start producing one kind and then switch to the other, and some switch back and forth throughout their lives. There are even lizards that have done away with one type altogether. Among our fellow mammals, which are less freewheeling because of the twin constraints of lactation and live birth, there are varied connections between gametes and body fat, body size, muscles, metabolism, brain function, and much more. While sperm and ova, they're not the entirety of biology and don't tell us what we need to know about sex, especially human sex. Let me be clear, I'm not arguing that differences in sex biology do not matter. They do. That's a really important point here, that a lot of people think that people who use gender to mean, an identity, right, as opposed to being synonymous with sex, they think that those people are saying that sex biology doesn't matter. But I don't think anyone's saying that it doesn't matter by many different metrics. And then the author goes on to say, nor am I asserting that reproductive physiology is not an important aspect of all animal lives. For example, humans are mammals, and the specifics of gestation and lactation require bodily differences that shape human physiologies, societies, and experiences. But even so, most bodily systems overlap extensively across large ova and small sperm gamete producers, and the pattern of physiology and behavior in relation to birth and care of offspring are not universal across species. For example, in many mammal species, ova producers do most of the infant care, but in some species, sperm producers do. And in very few species, they even lactate. In others, there is substantial investment by both sexes. The bottom line is that while animal gametes can be described as binary of two distinct kinds, the physiological systems, behaviors, and individuals that produce them are not. This reality of sex biology is well summarized by a group of biologists who recently wrote, "Reliance on strict binary categories of sex fails to accurately capture the diverse and nuanced nature of sex." We know that humans exhibit a range of biological and behavioral patterns related to sex biology that overlap and diverge. Producing ova or sperm does not tell us everything or even most things biologically or socially about an individual's childcare capacity, homemaking tendencies, sexual attractions, interest in literature, engineering, and math capabilities, or tendencies towards gossip, violence, compassion, sense of identity, or love of and competence for sports. Gametes and gamete production physiology by themselves are only part of the entirety of human lives. Plentiful data and analysis support the assertions that sex is very complex in humans and that binary and simplistic explanations for human sex biology are either wholly incorrect or substantially incomplete. For humans, sex is dynamic, biological, cultural, and enmeshed in feedback cycles with our environments, ecologies, and multiple physiological and social processes. So when someone states that an organism's sex is defined by the type of gamete, sperm or ova it has the function of producing, and argues that legal and social policy should be rooted in properties of bodies, they are not really talking about gametes and sex biology. They are arguing for a specific political and discriminatory definition of what is natural and right for humans based on a false representation of biology. Over the past few centuries, this process of misrepresentation of biology was and still is used to deny women's rights and to justify legal and societal misogyny and inequity, to justify slavery, racialization, racism, and to enforce multiple forms of discrimination and bias. Today, dishonest ascriptions of what biology is are being deployed to restrict women's bodily autonomy, target LGBTQIA+ individuals broadly, and most recently attack the rights of transsexual and transgender people. Given what we know about biology across animals and in humans, efforts to represent human sex and binary based solely on what gametes one produces are not about biology, but are about trying to restrict who counts as a full human in society. So let's read that summary one more time. Given what we know about biology across animals and in humans, efforts to represent human sex as binary based solely on what gametes one produces are not about biology, but are about trying to restrict who counts as a full human society. Now, I disagree with the author on that conclusion. I don't think that, that people who think that sex is binary are necessarily trying to restrict who counts as a full human in society. That sounds like political theater to me, and it sounds like some kind of, attempt at mind reading in what's going on here. I don't think that's what's going on with Dawkins either. I think Richard Dawkins just truly believes currently that this is the case, and he either might reject some of this new modeling, or isn't aware of it, right? And that's fine. And people are not going to agree and accept all new modeling that comes along scientifically. It would be interesting to hear Richard address it with someone who's informed on the most up-to-date modeling, and see whether he does agree or not, or maybe he has some questions, or maybe Richard has some information or an idea to propose that would actually have us fall back on sex as a binary. But there seems to be strong evidence that it's not binary. I mean, some basic searches on and studies that you'll look up, you'll find that, of course, like, sex is not binary. Now, Richard might think that he might be saying generally this is the case, minus some outliers. But I think he should try to be precise as someone who's communicating the biological sciences to the world, and zoology and all these things that Richard is well known for, and he's a hero of mine for. I think he should try to be more. He should try to provide more detail as opposed to less detail. And also, if there is a disagreement in the scientific community about, the binary nature of sex and whether it really is binary, he should really, if he's going to speak on it, he should update himself and reference it in detail, and give us the full diagnosis and his fully learned opinion on some of this new modeling. That's what I would like to see. But this does not make Richard Dawkins a transphobe. I don't think he's transphobic. I just think he's not yet convinced about, first of all, about he's using gender in the traditional, by the traditional usage of being synonymous with sex. And, and a lot of people will say he should be using this common usage. But that's not necessarily the case, right? I would say there's a more scientifically accurate usage to use, which would be that gender is an identity. It's a socially constructed identity. I think that's what our best scientific models do show us, our most detailed scientific models that take into consideration, the best models we have in psychology that are modeling human phenomena and behavior, not just our biological form, but what our mind is creating, what we are creating conceptually about ourselves. So I'd like to know what you guys think about this. Let's try to have a good faith, helpful discussion about this topic in the comment section. And let's show the world what the Pangburn community can do in having a fruitful dialectic about this. But to reiterate, I don't think Richard Dawkins is transphobic. I just think he is not yet convinced to adopt a new usage for the gender term. Probably it seems like he does appeal to tradition, which is funny because it's kind of religious of him to do this, right? I've kind of called him out on Twitter for this. I said, there are two common usages, Richard, for gender. And I think when Richard and some other people are arguing against people that are using gender to mean an identity, I think they're kind of strawmanning that other side, thinking that they're like denying biology or something. But I don't think that's the case at all. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And like I said, make a strong argument against my position or feelings here in the comment section. And I'm always open to changing my mind as a fallibilist. So yeah, thank you guys for stopping by, and let art and science inspire.